Dae'mons and Doms, a Kindred Tales novel by Evangeline Anderson. Narrated by Elise Anthony, Mace Earl Finn, Gregory Salinas, and Ayla Ariane. Dedicated to S.J. Sanders for finding me the perfect title for this book. Thanks, S.J. Having the Daemon's Baby. Chapter 1. Ketha. Now, Ketha, I've made you another appointment at the Conception Center, and I don't want you to miss it. Mistress Morbutt, Ketha's mother, frowned at her reprovingly. I know you skipped the last two, but you're not skipping this one. Ketha frowned rebelliously and put one hand on her ample hip. Because of the Earth DNA her mother had used when she had decided to conceive an heir, the two women looked almost nothing alike. Mistress Morbutt was tall and skinny with narrow hips, thin lips, short blonde hair, which she had dyed a fashionable bright pink, and pale green eyes. Her daughter, on the other hand, was short and curvy, with lovely brown skin, luscious lips, and long curly black hair. About the only thing she'd inherited from her mother was Mistress Morbutt's pale green eyes, which looked striking paired with her creamy complexion. Many of the other Yanite mistresses thought she was too curvy, but Ketha loved her shape, which was something like an overfull hourglass. She resisted the diets her skinny mother tried to put her on and dressed to emphasize her curves, all of which exasperated Mistress Morbutt. Ketha's mother was a prominent businesswoman in Opulix, the capital city of Yanni 6, a planet which was dominated and ruled by women. She had often bemoaned her decision to use Earth DNA when she conceived her daughter. She believed that this was the reason that Ketha was so strong-willed and obstinate. I told you, Mother, I don't want to get pregnant yet. I don't care if it's the fashion to have your heir early and get it over with. I'm just not ready, Ketha protested. I refuse to be bullied into having a baby just because you're trying to get a place in the Sacred Seven. The Sacred Seven was the ruling body of Yanni 6, composed of an ever-revolving cast of the richest and most respected Yanite mistresses. Mistress Morbutt was certainly rich enough, but she wasn't quite popular enough to get appointed. Accordingly, she was following the trends, and for several years now, the trend was to lock down your dynasty by making sure that your heir also had an heir. That way the family money stayed where it belonged, in the family. She had been trying to convince Ketha to go to the Conception Center and get pregnant for ages, but Ketha didn't want to. It wasn't that she didn't want a baby eventually. She loved children, but she didn't like the whole process at the Conception Center. She had tried it once and couldn't make herself go through with it. The metal rod they jammed inside you to deposit the seed was freezing cold and horribly uncomfortable. She had wiggled away when it was only halfway inside her and made a run for the door, and she was determined not to go back. I'm not ready to be pregnant yet, she told her mother again. Mistress Morbutt was still fuming as she paced the living area of their penthouse suite. It was at the top of one of the tallest buildings in Opulix, which she owned, and it was richly decorated with cloud fluff carpets and expensive singing crystal globes. The fist-sized crystals floated around the ceiling at a leisurely pace and hummed the latest songs quietly to themselves, all while shedding a rich, golden light over the opulent surroundings. Well, you're going to be ready very soon, Mistress Morbutt said grimly. You won't want to miss your appointment when the fertility drugs kick in. Fertility drugs? What are you talking about? Ketha stared at her mother blankly. I haven't taken any fertility drugs. Oh, yes, you have. Her mother flashed a triumphant smile. I've been having Chef Lennox put them in your food all week, and you should be feeling the effects very soon. Ketha stared at her mother aghast. Surely she was only joking. She wouldn't really drug her own daughter. Would she? Maybe she would, though, Ketha thought grimly. Was that the reason her breast had gotten larger lately? The nipples also seemed to be extra tender and sensitive. And she'd been feeling a need to be penetrated. A need which none of her extensive collection of sex toys seemed to assuage. Even the largest one she owned. And it was not small. Wasn't big enough to satisfy her cravings. Still, she couldn't believe that her own mother would drug her food. It was unforgivable. That's right. I see that you're coming around to the idea, Mistress Morbut said, nodding as she saw the look of dawning comprehension on Ketha's face. You're going to want to make sure you get to that appointment at the Conception Center, or you're going to be in some serious discomfort, young lady. Those drugs are engineered to make you need seed in your womb. Without it, you're going to have problems. Ketha found her voice at last. I can't believe you would do this to me, she exclaimed. It should be my choice when to have a baby. It's my body, after all. You're my heir, and you need an heir of your own, her mother said sharply. Don't act so ridiculously offended, Ketha. Just make sure you get to that appointment at the Conception Center this afternoon. Oh, and afterwards, go pick up my new body slave at the Flesh Bazaar, would you? The slaver promised me he'd be ready to collect by today. Then she swept out of the room, leaving Ketha to stare after her in anger. She couldn't believe her mother had drugged her. She thinks she's leaving me with no choice, she thought, glaring at her mother's back as she disappeared around the corner. But that's not true. There is another choice. I'll just ignore these urges and keep far away from the Conception Center. I'm not getting pregnant, no matter what she says. And that was exactly what she was determined to do. Chapter 2. Ketha. However, just a few hours later, Ketha was in serious discomfort, just as her mother had promised. She felt achingly empty between her legs, and even her largest flesh toy wasn't helping. It just wasn't big enough. She felt instinctively that she needed something with immense length and girth to stretch her pussy, but that wasn't all she needed. There was a deep craving inside her that seemed to be her body crying out for something. Ketha supposed the strange yearning was due to the drugs she'd been given, which made her need male seed in her womb, just as her mother had said. But she was still determined not to go to the Conception Center. Deliberately skipping her appointment yet again was sure to infuriate her mother. Not that Ketha cared. However, since she didn't want to get locked out of the penthouse, she decided she would do the other thing Mistress Morbud had asked of her, and go to pick up her new body slave at the Flesh Bazaar. Ketha had her own ship, and she had learned to fly it at an early age. She'd always been self-reliant, not wanting to depend on anyone else to take her places. Her mother called it being headstrong and rebellious, but Ketha thought it was practical. She liked being able to leave any place at any time.